OuterOrange.
Chronojets. Chronojets! Oh, Chronojets. Tiger. Привет, welcome back to another video. OuterOrange here, and we are here to discuss a different profile for Gear Chronicles. We are doing a deck profile today, and we are going to talk about Chronotooth Tiger Rebellion deck today. So normally people play Chronojet, meaning this guy, Chrono Dragon, all that stuff, but I decided I'm gonna be different, and I'm gonna whip out the Tigers today. So let's go on and discuss it. Welcome. So I'm gonna add a new thing to my deck profiles. I'm going to talk about the deck box that my deck profile will be in. So today we have the Persona 5 Royal. This is the Akechi Persona 5 deck box. I really love Persona. I've played the game probably a little too much, to be honest with you guys. And yeah, I decided to pick up the deck box for it. There's actually, these are pretty cheap right now, and they're about 15 bucks, and these are actually pretty thick, so meaning a lot can fit in here. You can even fit a premium deck in here, so I recommend getting one of these if you're really interested. But other than that, guys, let's go on into the profile. So we're going to start with our grade 4s and then go into our grade 3s, 2s, 1s, you know the drill. So let's talk about it. 3 of the Chronotooth Rebellion, and then we got 1 of the new card in clan selection. This is Interdimensional Dragon Time Leaper Dragon. That's a lot of dragons in one name. But so we're running 3 of these and 1 of these. You can kind of increase this if you want to have the full consistency of 4, but I kind of actually like it here. The deck is pretty tight, so you want to kind of make sure you get everything going and all that stuff. So you run three of the Chronotooth Tiger Rebellion, obviously because he is the kind of the main part of the deck. He forces intercepts off the board. This is really good against Angel Feather and Malik especially. It's good against Ghosties, so keep that in mind. So if Ghosties has intercepts on the board in the front row, you can just snipe those off. It also lowers 5k intercept. It gets 10k in a drive, and it gives 10k to your power to your units. And it's just pretty awesome. This card does a lot of aggro plays and it's just pretty solid stuff. And skill is the less cards you have in hand, the more he will do. So for 5 or less, you will choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards and just retire them. That's in the front row. For 3 or less, your entire front row gets 10k. And for 1 or less, you flip your entire damage. And by the way, if you are literally at no counterblast, that still works. And you can force your opponent for every shield that he or she has, it's 5k less. So if it's a 10k grade 1, it's now 5k grade 1. And so on and so forth. The same goes for intercepts. Anything that enters the guard circle will have 5k less shield value, which means 2ks are pretty much, grade 2s are pretty much, they don't have power anymore. So yeah. Anyway, I also run 1 of the Time Leaper in this deck. And the main reason why I run the Time Leaper is actually because he gives you a multi-attack, and I actually have another card in here, kind of has a little extra gimmick to make the deck more interesting and also make my Rebellion turns way more aggressive. But we'll go into that in our grade 3s here very shortly. So you run 4 of the grade 4s. Next here we have, beginning of our grade 3s here. So we're going to start out with Chronotooth Tiger, which is your main grade 3 that works off of with your grade 4. His skill, it literally says to stride, essentially, meaning make something equal 3, so like 1 and 2, or 3 1s, or a grade 3, or a grade 4, I believe is possible, because that's a grade 3 or greater. So as long as you meet the conditions, you can do 2 2s as well, so keep that in mind. But anyway, so once you meet that condition, you can ride a grade 4 on top of him. If you ride specifically this grade 4, the Rebellion, then you can also discard a card to gain an extra crit and an extra drive, making your Rebellion a triple drive now with a crit on top of all the other crap that he gets from his own skills. So that's mainly why we want to run 4 of these, because you really want to get to this card and you really want to make sure you ride with this card with the boy and pretty much have your whole engine going. So we'll make sure you get that. Your boy is important and your other boy is also important, so you want to make sure you get these boys. But how do we get these boys? Well, we'll get into it, but first we gotta finish off our grade 3s. Lastly, I run my special card. We run Piano, as Nauru Samurai likes to say, but Piano is very important. His full name is actually Mellow Amusements Colossus, but he looks like a piano or an orchestra of some kind. But anyway, his skill is when placed, you bind a card from your hand, and until the end of the turn, when your opponent would call from hand to guard circle, he or she must call 2 cards or more. So if you synergize this with, if you synergize this with the other grade 4, this grade 4 allows you to attack multiple times and allows you to search for a card. So you can search for Piano with this card and then have the 4 attacks that will pretty much enable I think it's 3 attacks. The fact being is every attack that you have on this turn, the opponent will have to guard twice. So what you can do is you can kind of go into this and lower their hand as much as possible and then end the game with this guy. So that's kind of like the little tech I put in. Jet doesn't really allow for this as easily, as there's a lot of other cards that kind of take up the space, but in in this Chrono Fang deck, you can actually get away with it. So this is our 5 grade 3s. Going into our grade 2s, we're going to start with the main engine to help us kind of draw, but also be able to discard, but also be able to draw, if that makes sense. This deck really discards a lot, but you want to make sure you get those draws back. And this is one of the main ways that you can start with the draw and then kind of go through to lower your draw and then give it back. So he has a really awesome Vanguard skill and a really awesome Rearguard skill. His Vanguard skill says at the beginning of your ride phase, so when you were to ride on top of him, you draw another time. So you draw once per turn, and then you draw again. So you essentially draw twice. And then his Rearguard skill says discard a card from your hand, and this unit gets a crit. So on your Rebellion turn, you can have him out, you can have your Rebellion out, you can have your Rebellion out and, you know, have something else here, maybe Piano if you really want to be annoying, and this has to be guarded with 2 cards, this has to be guarded with 2 cards, this has to be guarded with 2 cards, you know what I mean? Kind of gets a really nice engine going. Plus this will have a crit, this will have a crit, and on top of the guard restrict, on top of force markers. This gets kind of crazy if you ask me. If you really play it out right, this deck gets really aggro, and a lot of decks just can't handle it. So like I said, we're on 4 of the Chronotooth Tiger. Next on our grade 2s, we run Steam Scar Arcub. So very useful card. Again, as I mentioned, you're going to draw a lot, but you also want to discard to activate that Rebellion skill, right? So in order to discard, you can use cards like this. This card states Counterblast 1. Discard a card from your hand. Give your Vanguard an extra drive. So this will pretty much make it so that you have a way to have a quadruple drive on your Rebellion turn. So you can get a triple drive off of just going from the grade 3 to the grade 4. Then you can add this card and get a quadruple drive. If you have 2 of these on the board, by the way, you can actually activate the skill and then activate again if you have enough Counterblast for it, because the deck doesn't rely on Counterblast, which I think is amazing. Probably the best part of the deck is that you don't rely on Counterblast. You can get away with just not doing this. But if you do, you can just keep getting drives, you know what I mean? If you get all these on the board, you can get them all out and then call over them and do other things. So very strong card. Used to be extremely expensive, now really cheap with clan selection. Pick them up. If you want to play Gears, pick them up. Next with our grade 2s, one of my favorite cards, somewhat appreciated, somewhat not appreciated. Some people run this card, some people don't. This is Naboo, and her full name is Steam Mechanic Naboo. This card's amazing, especially late game. This card just gets progressively better in the late game. One of the skill is when it attacks, you bind a card from your drop zone. Literally bind anything, doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's not your grade 4s. And you must guard with a grade 1 or greater for this particular battle. So she could be a really solid finisher if this is the last attack, on top of the fact they'll probably have crits on it. And then the best part about it, early game, this is where the early game mechanic of it comes in. At the end of the battle it attacked, you put it into Soul and you draw a card. And Soul is very important in Gear Chronicle, as your Soul does get depleted relatively fast. I would say Rebellion, the Rebellion Tiger deck doesn't really rely on it as much. However, you may have some trouble. It's not nearly as bad as I think Jet struggles with Soul, but just you want to put these in just to kind of help with that Soul. It just helps. Plus, like I said, the card itself has a guard restrict, and seeing this late game is actually really nice. Seeing it early game is nice. It gives the draw. It's just an overall good card. Really helps the deck out. So everyone, those. Alright, going into our grade 1s, again, continuing on our engine of drawing as much as possible, but also being able to discard. We, of course, run Chronotooth Tiger, the best boy. One of the most expensive cards in the set it came out with, along with the fact of being a really solid card, kind of starting off this weird engine of double drawing. So this skill has a Vanguard skill, same as our grade 2 Chronobite on the beginning of your ride phase, so when you ride your grade 2, or when you're about to ride, before you ride, you draw a card. And then his other skill says, if he were to be discarded, so if you were to just be like, he's in your hand and you discard him, he actually goes back to the board, you counterblast and draw a card. Very nice way. He stays rested though, but he, will stand your next turn as long as it doesn't get retired. So pretty nice card. Overall, just a good card to, 1, get it on the board, but 2, it makes your discard just less painful, and just overall really good, just really good unit. Literally run an all Gear Chronicles deck now, because why wouldn't you? It's an extra draw. Very strong card. going on in, talk about some of our new cards. So here we have the Lost Gear Dog 8. So let's talk about this card. This card is a new addition from clan selection, and it does a lot of good stuff for the clan. It really changed Gear Chronicle's consistency, as now the deck is so much more consistent both in Jet and in this deck. Wherever you put this card in, if you're trying to get to your grade 4s faster or your grade 3, so you do have your ride target, this is the card to go to. So let's talk about skill. Skill says when placed from hand, you may reveal a grade 3 from your hand. Search your deck for a grade 3 reveal a grade 3 or greater, so you can literally reveal a grade 4. Search your deck for a grade 1, reveal it, put into your hand, and then drop something, like discard something that equals 3. So you can drop your grade 4. So what you do is you pretty much essentially the best play, or one of the better. You reveal your grade 4, you search for a grade 3, you drop the grade 4, and now you have your ride target. Your ride target searches for a grade 4 anyway, on top of the fact that there's other cards in this deck that recycle grade 4s, so you'll probably see this go back into your deck anyway. So the fact that you have like this engine where you can search for a grade 3 through a grade 4 and then get the grade 3, drop the grade 4, recycle the grade 4, and still be able to search for it is just amazing. That's what makes this gear card really solid, because not only does it help avoiding G-assisting, but it also literally just pluses the engine in the way you want it to be plussed. To another clan selection card that's actually been in Japan for a while, we just finally got it over in America. This is Steam Maiden Ribble. Ribble is just an overall amazing card. Ribble is a combination of the Chronotooth Tiger and the Quickie Worker all in one card. So her full skill, let's read it, says when this card is... Oh, I forgot to tell you guys, this is also a Stride Father. This is a Stride Father, meaning you can use this as a grade 3. And the grade 2 that we run in here is also a Stride Father. If it's in your hand, you can use it as a grade 3. So meaning you don't have to discard like a 1 and a 2 or a grade 3. You can just discard that instead. Anyway, going back to this. So Ribble's skill states, when this card is discarded from your hand during your turn, which by the way we'll be discarding a lot, use Soul Blast, call this card to Rearguard Circle. She gets 5k, so this gives you a 4th attack, by the way, or a 5th one if you discard 2 of them in Jet. And then her other skill says, then put a normal unit from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck. Put a normal unit from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck. Ding, ding, ding. Probably going to put your grade 4 in. You might put something else in. I don't see why you would, but you're going to put your grade 4 in probably. And then you draw a card for that. So you discard her, you do all this crap, and then you draw a card on top of that. And you give a 4th attack. She herself gains power, and then you can recycle your grade 4s. So you're usually not going to run out of your grade 4s. If you are, because before, what would happen is if the games went too long, you would run out of grade 4s and just literally have to swing with your grade 3s and just not have much of a turn. That's not a thing anymore. You don't have to concern yourself with not having enough grade 4s, as this card exists. On top of the fact that it actually keeps you even, as you get what you need, you put the stuff back that you need, and you also draw a card. It does require Soul Blast, so keep in mind, don't go crazy on this. You can't run out of soul. So yeah, that is our Ribble. Lastly, I run 2 copies of our grade 3 Searcher. This is Steam Breath Dragon. I'm still debating if I want to keep this card in or not. I kind of want to keep it in, as like I don't really know what other grade 1 I'd really run, aside from maybe another Tiger. I don't know what that one of, there would be like one of, and I don't know, maybe I could just make it a grade 2, maybe a Naboo. I don't know, I'm still debating on this, and you guys can tell me your thoughts, but pretty much the skill is when placed from hand, look at top 5 for a grade 3. If you do get a grade 3, you discard something. Essentially, you can discard the grade 3 you picked up, or you can discard whatever you want. So the skill says if you discard at any point during your turn, you also get 5k, so he becomes a 13k booster, which I think is pretty nice. It really makes your rebellion turns that much more bigger. It also just adds more aggro early on. You can have 2 of these outs, and if you discard at some point, you can swing. Makes them both 13 each, so that's 26. Just something to keep in mind. You can also have in the back row. They're each 5k each, making the 13k. So if you have like front row rear guards like your grade 2 Tiger, just make it more aggressive. So just overall a really good card. However, we used to run it at 4. Now with other ways to get to your ride target and other cards that are just completely insane, it's kind of hard to put it at 4 anymore. But I think 2 isn't too bad, but I'm still deciding. Next, let's talk about triggers. I'm going to go into a pretty deep discussion about triggers because of the current meta. I will talk about triggers in multiple ways here. But first, I'll show you guys the triggers, and then we'll kind of discuss them. So for Sentinels, I run 2 crit Sentinels, 2 draw Sentinels. So draw PG and 30k crits. And then for continuing on, I run 4 heals and then I run crits, and I run some more crits, equaling a total of 10 crit to draw 4 heal. Now, keep in mind, right now we are in a meta where Angel Feather is kind of dominating, and a lot of what Japan has been doing is they have been doing this thing where they actually stopped running Sentinels. So if I were you, I would definitely keep track of the meta and see what might be changed. Angel Feather has a guard restrict, a pretty aggressive guard restrict too, so it may not be a good idea to run your Sentinels, but that is something that I see Japan is currently experimenting with, as they seem to be struggling with Angel Feather a little bit, since they are changing their decks, their dex triggers literally to deal with Angel Feather. Since they are changing it, is something I thought I would keep in mind. I have been watching Japan's deck list, and I just been noticing that they've been taking out those Sentinels. As for the 2 draw and 2 crit, I really want my Rebellion to kill on his first attack, and not going draw at all is kind of painful, but going some draw isn't too bad. I think just 10 crit is actually a pretty good spot. Like I said, you can just take these out and run like straight crits if you really want to. If you want to just be that aggressive, like you can go 12 crits and have a blast. You can go 12 vanilla crits and have, again, a blast. Lastly, we need a starter. So there's our starter. Boom. And then I guess let me talk about force markers real quick. So force 1, you have the option of going force 1 and force 2. I would really debate this based off how your hand is doing. Depending on your hand, you should make the decision of going force 1 or force 2. The reason why I say that is because, well, it's your hand and your opponent's damage. So if you have the hands that can get you the quadruple drive along with a lot of power, like if you just don't have much of a hand and you're able to pretty much get every single one of these skills to go off, you may want to go force 2 and just try and kill your opponent off. Another thing that's really nice to do is say your opponent is at 2 damage and you do land your 10k skill off of him, you do get the 10k off of this skill, then you may want to go the extra crit, because that will make your Chronotooth crit. So it makes them 3 crit, and if your opponent is at 3 damage or some kind of weird number where it's lethal, you can make it really awesome. And keep in mind, if you have your grade 2 out, your grade 2 will also become lethal. So what another thing you can do is you can actually put it on him, and then you have your opponent is going to have to choose what they want to guard. Because what you can do is you can swing with this, which will already have a crit on it, and then they may not be able to take this because this will also have a crit on it. Because the crit on itself, this will also be a 3 crit. So they can perfect guard this, but then they're going to have to deal with how to take this. You can make 2 pretty lethal columns. You can make this like be at the 2 or 3, and then make this be at 3, and just make it ridiculous, depending on how you end your crits. Just something to keep in mind. Force 1 definitely helps with numbers. So if you were to put force 1 down, keep in mind that it'll make all your columns way more lethal. I typically, when I go force 1, I put it on my rear guards. I make my rear guards bigger, as rear guards do not really get that big in this deck. So usually if I go force 1, I mainly put my aggro on my rear guards, and I just think that's kind of like what you would want to do in this sense. Like if you have rear guards, you probably want to, you don't really force spam in this deck, you're not going to ride that much, so if you are going to do that, you might as well do that. Another thing to keep in mind, if you have piano, so say you have piano out, it may be wise to go force 2. Why is that? Well, your opponent has to guard with 2 cards for the rest of the turn from here on out, so that means it doesn't matter how big the number is, as long as it's hittable, they have to guard with 2 cards. So going force 2 may be the better option, as your opponent is forced to guard it twice with 2 cards, or they take 2 damage. So kind of puts your opponent in a really awkward situation, and if that's kind of what you're going for, then have at it. I mean, I think you can go force 1, I think you can go force 2. So just something to keep in mind, you can go either or. You make the decision, see how your match is going. I really recommend testing as much as possible to kind of know. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that deck profile. This has been a really fun deck for me to play around with. I really like the Tigers. I've always preferred the Tigers over the Jets, to be honest with you guys. I know that they're not as popular, and some people do consider them a lower tier. I just really love how much you draw and how much you discard to then draw again. I just really like the concept of the deck. You can go down to 1 card and then go all the way back to like 7 cards like really easily. I just think overall that engine's just kind of cool. If you have any questions or concerns or any ideas that you think would be cool to just throw into this deck, feel free to come at me with those. I think this deck is a little straightforward. However, if you have any cool techs like the piano or other techs that you may know of, please feel free to tell me about them. But in that, guys, it's time to say goodbye. Thank you to this guy, Fabio Martins, for subscribing. Thank you for joining in on the fun. And that, guys, peace out. Das Vidania. See you guys next time. Bye.